Alright, hello all, OmniGamer here. So today I want to discuss something that I've been working on for quite a while now. I'm really excited about it, and it's come a long way. It's a project that evolved way back when I was trying to come up with different ways for input displays and other things, but today I'm finally able to talk about it with you, and really what better way to capture that excitement than with some very boring PowerPoint. So, what I'm trying to go over today is what I'm tentatively calling Chimera. As the title says, it's a universal controller remapper, but there's quite a bit more to it than that. I just want to go over some of the basic descriptions and let you know kind of where it's going and what to expect from it. This presentation is pretty bare bones if you can't tell, but I just want to get something out there so people really know what to expect. Alright, so from a really stripped down view, it's composed of just a few components. There's the Chimera core itself, and that basically acts as the brains, but there's also adapters, which allow for interfacing with individual controllers and consoles. The main idea is that you can swap out the adapter to match your intended controller and console. Simple enough, right? That's the universal part of things. You can do SNES to Genesis, GameCube to Saturn, or even PlayStation to Atari. Doesn't matter. I have some plans for how to make it so that you don't have a million adapters for all your different controllers and consoles, but we'll cover that at a later date. And of course, mapping. The main idea is that you can just configure your output to match whatever input you want. So let's say that you wanted to have your A button instead map to R button. Or you could even map it to some value on an analog stick. You can set all that up, and it's pretty easy and straightforward as a concept, but there's a lot more power in getting to set all of the controls how you want them, being able to set it to something that is convenient for you in whatever gaming endeavor you're trying to go on. Something else, though, that uses a pretty similar concept, but might be a bit more on the controversial end, is macros. And macros use a specific input sequence that triggers some predefined activity thereafter. So in this example, you press A and B at the same time, and it will cause the system to output Y, R, and down. And that is just the first frame. You can have multiple frames after that. Let's just say 10 frames. And that are predefined. They'll do exactly what you want over the course of that time before they return control to you. This is really powerful in that you can set up a bunch of sequences that might not be possible for humans at all, and ease strain on specific repetitive actions. That said, this is also really controversial. It could also be used for cheating and other nefarious things, but I have some ideas on how to deal with that as well, which I'll cover in just a little bit. On that note, the brains here can also hook up to your host system, so your standard computer, laptop, whatever. This goes beyond simply converting and manipulating, as we've talked about in the past couple of slides, but it also allows you to, let's say, transfer the inputs instantaneously to your computer, and that lets you do a couple of interesting things. First and foremost, most people recognize the ability to do input displays and input captures. So this is just, you have some animation or otherwise that responds to these inputs as it goes and provides immediate visual confirmation. You can imagine this working easily with any controller, any console now, and just have it display one device for all of your different input display needs. Now, beyond that, it's also really useful for actually keeping track of performance and some other neat things that just having that data available might help with. Another concept that hasn't really been explored a whole lot is that you can control the host machine entirely from those button presses. I bring this up in the form of system macros, so for example, you could consider hitting L and R at the same time to start your live split timer or anything else like that. The last little bit here is really important, and I want to spend some time going over it. Performance verification. Rather than just capturing the inputs, you can also record them. So keep up with a running string of all of the inputs that have occurred over the course of a play session or a run or however you want to do it. and this is something that you can tie into, well, what a player was playing at a particular point in time, so you get a better idea of, well, at this juncture they were pressing these inputs. But what's more powerful than that is if you give the ability to actually verify that those inputs couldn't have been tampered with or couldn't have been spoofed. And this is the idea behind the signed input logs. Without going too much into the weeds here, it's possible to have a recorded log of your play session that can't be spoofed, can't be tampered with, and basically it's a log that proves your performance wasn't faked, and you can see everything that the player did to accomplish it. You get some added benefit of being able to note when macros are used or what mapping was getting used, but the whole idea here is that a player can share this log on the internet, let anybody examine it, verify that it is correct. This helps to ensure that players are following the rules and that they didn't violate any of the provisions that might be existing against macros or otherwise. But it also helps assert that the performance actually happened and wasn't playback from an emulator or video, something that we don't really have any other means of showing at the moment. So, to summarize here, I've just organized some of the major planned features, and we've covered most of them in some form or another, but there's a couple that I want to point out. I plan to support multiple profiles with this device, so you can switch to a different profile for specific games and systems that you want to use. I also intend to implement a special turbo mode that's separate from macros that is configurable in just, say, which buttons actually are affected and which rates might get executed. And finally, latency here is going to be negligible, and there's always a precisely oriented timer to allow you to track what's going on and map it directly up to, let's say, something's occurring in a video. As for where I'm at in development, I've spent a long time toying with different concepts and figuring out what makes sense, but I've pretty well nailed down everything by now, covering the general specifications and features, the overall architecture, and even the components that I intend to use. Starting soon, though, we'll actually be putting it all into code and getting to a proof of concept. Afterwards, we'll dive into some testing, provide a limited prototype release to select users, and eventually we'll get to the full release once everything is ironed out. Alright, to close things out, I just wanted to say that though this started as a speedrunning project, it really evolved into something more. A lot of speedrunning applications still exist and are targeted by some of these features, but there's a big need for something else like this in the casual and assisted market needs too. So, macros might sound scary. I really hope that people avoid knee-jerk reactions to it as a feature and really embrace the fact that these secure input logs will help find violations of rules and verify that people aren't up to any shenanigans as they're going through. And really, I'm interested to see what happens, because I think having macros available for some games might allow for some new and interesting categories that really weren't possible before, using things like left plus right or otherwise. And as for timeline, right now I'm hoping to have some produced, some prototypes by fall. If all goes well, maybe I'll get to a full release in winter, but there's still a lot to do before then. Alright, final thing to note. You can still help out with the project. I'm not currently looking for additional team members to help with design and implementation, but I'd love to hear more feedback on the current features and how you'd like to use Chimera. If you're a developer, I'd also love to hear your ideas on how you'd like to use the data coming out from it. As far as I know, there isn't really anything else out there like this. And what kind of API options and otherwise you'd also like me to support, so I can help you make your ideas a reality. Finally, you can let me know your thoughts and comments by email, omnigamer@speedrunscience.com, by Twitter with @theomnigamer, or follow the link at the bottom to join my Discord for further discussion. Thanks for watching, and I hope to hear your feedback on everything I've talked about so far. Thanks again. See you soon.